Beacon is what we're trying to do, Mark, as you know, and is we're trying to make mental health care, effective mental health care, available, affordable, and accessible to all. And we got into this business for a very simple reason. As I went through my own bout of depression back in 2011, when I got a call at 7 o'clock in the morning that my brother had died walking to work. And I'd had a few heart operations in the previous 16 months and a few other things happened. And I woke up about 3 weeks later, seriously depressed. And I began my journey. And the interesting about my journey is I had been on the board of CAMH's foundation, so the Center for Addiction and Mental Health Foundation. So I knew the landscape. I knew who to call, got my phone calls returned, etc. It was really hard for me to get help. It was difficult for me to find someone who was effective, difficult for me to connect, difficult for me to get on the calendar, long wait lists. It's expensive in the private sector. If you want to go in the public sector, there are areas of this province that have 3,000 person wait lists in their public sector, which is effectively forever. Really, when I came out of my depression back in the spring of 2012, my wife and I really sat back and, we'd done some social stuff, a bunch of social stuff before, I should say, and we sat back and said, this is a problem that needs to be fixed. And that's why we got into it.
I spoke about it when I spoke about this on social media. I really had skirmishes with mental health. I have some challenges with anxiety, but generally speaking, I get through. I don't have a serious problem. And when I need treatment, I can afford to go to a psychologist and get it treated. But there are, the rest of society that maybe doesn't have the freedom to leave their job and spend 3 hours out, as you say, traveling and coming back. And so I'd like to know a little bit more about how you solve the problem at Beacon for people like us who maybe could afford it but are worried about stigma or access, or other people who just don't have the money.
So what we really did is we sat about it. First, what we did, sort of in a classic pivot, is we decided that we were going to build, if you will, the Sleep Country Canada of psychology. So we'd build clinics across the country, we'd be known with a brand, and we'd make it more accessible because there'd be more of them. But after about a year, we'd done 6. After our first year, we sat down and realized we really haven't solved anything. We made it a little more accessible, it's no more affordable. And so we then began literally a worldwide search, and I have to tell you, your firm was instrumental. And what we found that everyone was trying to solve what I call the wellness problem, but no one was trying to solve the illness problem. Everyone had these light apps, come do a little meditation. By the way, meditation's great. Everyone was trying to do things like, write on a wall and have your friends come in and peer support. Peer support's great, but none of that stuff's treatment. And because our heritage is deep treatment in our clinics, and we'll see tens and tens of thousands of people in our clinics this year, because that's our heritage, we decided we needed to build a capability that was deep treatment, that really solved the problem. And so that's what led us to develop Beacon.
By the time I got involved, you alluded to us doing strategy, you had amassed people on your board and on your advisory who technically, were way deeper, obviously, than you, and who had been studying this lady out in Manitoba who had been studying digital therapy for a long time. And sort of like, they wrote the book.
But all we did really is we took the book that Heather and others had written. Heather Hadjipastopoulou, she's actually at the University of Regina, a Canadian treasure.
Yeah.
What we really did is we took her book, we partnered with Ryerson, we've done some work with CAMH, we took their books, and what we really did is we put it into a package that was effective, affordable, and accessible. And so today you can log on to Beacon, you can come on to mindbeacon.com, our site, and for the price of 2 visits to a psychologist, you can take an entire year of treatment with a therapist, and that's a person we use that's assigned to you to help you through it. The reality is that we spend almost 50% of the tax base of Ontario on healthcare today, and a very small fraction, something like 7%, is spent on mental health care. Whereas if you look at the cost of disability, it's 30% of cases, and mental health is 70% of the cost of disability. There are about 600,000 Canadians off work as we sit here today, this week, for mental health issues. So it's an enormous cost. It's tens and tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars to the economy. People say, oh, you have to have face-to-face. The British rolled out IEPT and they treat like 1 million people a year now. Even the leaders of that are coming out and saying, if we were going to do it again today, we'd do it digitally. Our clinicians at best can see 20 to 25 people a week at best, and those are workhorses.
Yeah, you got to meet with them for an hour, you got to take notes,
got to write up the notes.
Get them to come to your office.
Right, at most. Our Beacon therapists, and again, when you sign on Beacon, you get a dedicated therapist, it's a real person, they stay with you. Our Beacon therapists can do 3 to 6 times that number of people for a lower cost. That's 70% of mental health issues that can be dealt with by teaching people the skills that tend to be effective when you put in a detailed, rigorous protocol and you stick to the protocols. So CBT being a great protocol, if you will, for a lot of that stuff. For those sorts of things, we can take 70% of those people suffering, and a lot of them suffering remotely, we can put them on the digital, deal with them much more cost effectively, leaving the money available for those. And in the remote communities, we secure video link into those remote communities. There's no reason why that shouldn't be done and be part of the government system.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to the success of Beacon. Not only because you're a client and I want my clients to do well, because I'm an investor and I want to get money back, but most importantly, because I think we're going to solve a big societal problem, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. So thank you so much for being here.
You know what? Thank you for being part of it.